Okay, we are live. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. And I'm joined this evening by our very lovely co-host, Miss G, Miss Georgette Truen. Miss G, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, thank you.
And
Mhm,
I know you went to the dentist today. You're
mhm,
still in pain?
yes.
Okay. And we are joined tonight by a very special guest, Miss Stacy. Miss Stacy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I see you there with other folks. Who do we have with us?
This is my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, Savannah, and my son Jamie.
Are they both adults? I hope.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So they don't have an open CPS case, right?
They're the ones that do. Yes,
Okay. You guys have an open CPS case.
yes,
Okay, but you're not the children in the case. You're the parents, right?
yes.
Okay. So where are you guys? What state you guys calling or coming from?
Iowa. We're in Iowa.
Iowa. Iowa. You might be the first guest I've ever had from Iowa. Is CPS acting up in Iowa as well?
Oh boy. Yes.
What's the capital of Iowa?
Des Moines. Des Moines.
Des Moines, Iowa. And so I'm not, my geography isn't really kicking in right now. What are some of the states that border Iowa?
Nebraska, Minnesota,
Okay.
Illinois.
Okay. So you're basically the Midwest, right?
Yep. Yes.
Is that corn country?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I know the University of Iowa, I think it was the University of Iowa, had a very good football team in the past several years.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So,
You're a Hawkeye fan? Yeah. Oh boy.
all right. I was just reading a comment from Deidre. I told you it was going to be hard to talk. Oh, she must be talking to Miss G in her dental appointment today.
Yes,
Oh.
but I can talk. I just not.
Okay, Jamie says lame Hawkeyes. Okay.
Get off of me.
That's Jamie in back of you.
Jamie, I love you already.
He's a jokester, let me tell you.
I love him.
Okay, so tell me what's going on with CPS in Iowa.
Well, I had a baby on the 18th, a little baby girl, and I think I had her not even for 24 hours. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was like maybe 12 hours in my care. And I had CPS come into the hospital and tell me based on assumption that there was concerns that there was going to be substances in her umbilical cord and asked me if I would give them if I would consent to the removal of her out of my care.
Wait. You would consent to the removal of what?
To remove her out of my care. For them to take the baby. Yeah.
Why would they think you would agree to that?
Right. I told her no, I was not going to consent to the removal of my child because I hadn't even had her for 12 hours, let alone I wasn't going to just like let anyone take my child. And we stated we wanted a lawyer present. She walked out. She said, "Okay, I'm going to call my supervisor." And then she didn't even come back in for about a solid hour. And this is also someone who I've worked with as a child. So
you knew her?
Yeah, I knew her, and she had worked with me in previous cases, which she decided were found not non-founded. But this was like a case such as like sex trafficking, child abuse, and she ruled it all unfounded. And
Okay, keep going.
she came back into the room after about an hour and she was like, "Did you talk to anyone?" And we were like, "You told us you were going to talk to your supervisor." we said we didn't want to talk to you without an attorney present. And she goes, well, I needed you guys to call your attorneys then. And then she walked back out of the room because I said, no, I'm not going to consent to the removal once again. And she walked out of the room, and the first thing I did was start crying. And I was like, am I going to lose my child because I won't consent to the removal? And so he called his mother, and we told her all about the situation, that they wanted to remove her out of the care based on assumption that there was substances in her umbilical cord. When I tested negative, my child tested negative, like, and they just instantly came in, not even 12 hours, and was like, will you give us consent? And so we ended up having to make a safety plan.
And that's where I come in.
Yeah, in the hospital the next day, not even 24 hours after, because they said that they were going to open a whole China assessment. So we made the safety
Well, wait, I didn't hear you. They're going to open up what?
A China assessment.
China assessment?
A child in need of assistance.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
And so we kept stating that Stacy had to go to work. We kept stating Monday she has to go to work.
Well, let's rewind here.
Okay.
So she was talking about the safety plan. We all read the safety plan. There were certain things they did not sign on this particular safety plan, but we did put our signatures. And it was that they were to come to my house that Friday when they got released from the hospital, which they had already planned on doing anyway, just so I could let them get some rest. And they would be supervised 24 hours up until pretty much Monday morning, because I told her I had to go to work. She specifically said, well, you could exit the safety plan anytime you want to. And I said, well, I'm not going to exit it until Monday morning when I have to go to work. She asked me to text her just to, like a reminder Sunday night. I text her Sunday night. I said, I'm going to work.
A reason for this, that she said text her, is because she had stated she was going to contact my grandmother, so my grandmother could come in on Monday and end up being the person to take over for her. And my grandmother is deaf. She asked multiple times if she can read lips, if she needs an interpreter, stated she was going to talk to her before Sunday so we could get her involved in the safety plan. And she had texted us, or she texted them too, not even me, Sunday night, stated that my grandmother was approved. But come to find out, my grandmother had no knowledge of this.
He's still here. Don't worry.
I was like, what?
Don't worry.
My grandmother had no knowledge of the safety plan whatsoever. She had no idea she was supposed to even come to the home and watch us. She had not been contacted. My grandfather, who interprets for her, had not been contacted. She had failed to keep her part of the deal, stating she was going to contact my grandmother to be the supervisor.
So she shows up in my house. I'm already gone to work. My boyfriend is home, however. He sits around and waits for a little while until he has to go to work. And between that, caseworker shows up at my house, is totally ticked off because they're here alone.
She doesn't know that yet.
And calls the police. Has 2 police officers come out to my house, grab the baby, and take off.
Yeah, she stated she got a verbal court order because she did knock on the door, but we were asleep. Like, we had just woken up. I went upstairs, made a cup of coffee, and was breastfeeding. And she had knocked on the door. I couldn't answer. I'm breastfeeding my child. I'm taking care of her. And I didn't even know it was her at the time. And she stated she kept calling my phone. My phone's downstairs. Like, I wasn't on my phone while I was breastfeeding. And then He answered the door, and he said, "We don't want to talk to you unless there's a court order." And so she got a verbal court order.
Never showed them anything.
Yeah, never even showed us a paper stating that she has a court order, even after we asked it multiple times. And she got 2 police officers here stating that because we did not let her enter the home, she was removing our child.
Still based on assumption that we have no.
Yeah, still based on assumption.
We have no one inside.
Yeah, okay,
So they-
hold on. So
Okay.
if the guy in back thinks I can hear him, he's sadly mistaken.
You can't even hear you.
Oh, okay.
You gotta. We know what we're saying.
Hold on a second, because I'm a little bit confused.
Okay.
She comes to your house, and because you don't answer the door or let her in, she says she got a verbal court order to take your child.
Yes.
That's a no-no.
First of all, I've never heard that. Now, I haven't been to Iowa, but I can't imagine, the Constitution is suspended in Iowa, or maybe
Right.
it is. I don't know.
Oh,
But-
it gets better.
Oh yeah.
Now, how long? When was this? When did this happen?
This happened 2 weeks ago.
How old was she?
No, it was the 23rd.
The 23rd.
She
Of
was
what?
5 days
January?
January. Yes. The baby was only 5 days old.
Okay, so hold on a
Not
second.
even.
Where is your child right now?
She is being placed in the care of my grandparents.
Okay.
But this is after she was in foster care.
She was in foster care for a week and a half.
Okay. So is she at your grandparents right now? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. You get along with your grandparents?
I do. I get along with my grandparents
Okay.
very well. We have a very
So
strong relationship.
you've at least been to court one time, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you've only been to court one time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what are the allegations against the parents? Because up to this point, you haven't told me anything that would necessitate the child from being detained.
So they stated at court because there was I'm an addict of 6 years. I grew up with a very traumatic past, and so when I had found out I was pregnant in June, I had quit cold turkey instantly, and because of things that were going on in my life, pregnant or not, like addicts are addicts, and it sucks, and I regret it every bit of it. But I did have one relapse in November. I went to the hospital. I was very open and honest. I stated that I needed treatment. And so the assumption was that she had methamphetamine in her system, even though her blood test came back negative and she came back negative. But her umbilical cord came back with 8 nanograms of methamphetamine. And even though, like, any amount is still an amount, 8 nanograms to a gram is 8 out of a billion. So it proves that there was only one relapse, because that can go back to 5 months. But so they took her out of my care because they stated I was an unsafe mother due to the fact that her umbilical cord came back positive.
No, because all this started before they even got an umbilical cord test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were the allegations against the father that they couldn't give the father the child?
Because he has previous his other
kids were taken years ago. His rights were terminated. That's a whole other story.
Now, do they have you drug testing and drug counseling and all that stuff?
I actually went and got a substance abuse evaluation done. I have already taken 3 drug screens, and they're still stating that I need to do a patch.
You got to watch out for that patch. It's very unreliable.
Yeah.
But all of her tests came back negative.
Yeah, and the drug patch is the cheapest for your county or state, but it's also the most unreliable.
And that's what worries.
Did you say that the baby's umbilical cord, that the baby had drugs in the system, or no? I didn't hear that part.
She did not have any drugs in her blood when she was born, in her urine when she was born, just in the umbilical cord. And like I said, it was that 8 nanograms out of billion.
They did 2 umbilical cord tests.
Oh,
The
yeah.
first one was negative, and that was what? The
The
blood.
umbilical cord.
Then they smelled, I guess, a part of it out, the tissue out, and then that came back with the 8 nanograms.
Is that a lot? I don't know about drugs really. Okay.
No,
No.
a gram is 1 billion nanograms. So 8 nanograms is like
It's nothing.
Right.
But
It's like a grain of sand on the beach.
Correct.
okay, that's nothing. So, but
Right.
I did read the law in Iowa just now, and they cannot remove a baby. It's illegal to remove a child without a court order, without a signed court order.
See, and they never showed him one. They said it was verbal, but what happened was after that,
But by the way, before you finish that, it also states that in Iowa, social workers have been doing that where they go knocking on the door, and they, if a parent doesn't open the door, then they see that they're not cooperating, and then they go and get a police officer and remove the child immediately
Yep.
without due process of an investigation.
Sounds familiar. But that particular day that the baby was removed, they had a doctor's appointment for the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she told, it was within 2 hours, and she told them that she was concerned about the baby's breathing.
Mm-hmm.
That she called the doctor. The doctor said, just bring her in 2 hours, and we'll see her. So the caseworker takes the baby, puts her in the car, and basically tells her.
They called me immediately and said, "Hey, we're taking your child
to the hospital.
The ER. Can you meet us there?"
So she did.
You're in violation of your 14th Amendment, pretty much.
Yes.
So, it gets worse. They take the baby to the ER. They meet over there. The ER decides to keep the baby overnight just for observation.
Mm-hmm.
I asked if I could stay the night with my child. Like, they said that they tried to call every family member to have her placed. Well, they didn't call my grandparents where she's at now.
And I've been approved as well.
My aunt has been approved. They approved my mom's friend. So why is she being put in foster care in the first place?
But she called this foster person to come to the hospital, to go upstairs with the baby, and told
me that
she could not stay the night with her baby. Through the course of the night, she was calling the nurses station to ask how her baby was. They told us several times
they can't
give her any information about her child. We have all this recorded too.
Have you thought about bringing a lawsuit against the county?
Yes, I have. Both of us have.
Well, you're gonna have to do it because, damn, Mr. Davis, I wish they were like next door to us.
I know.
That would have been an amazing lawsuit.
Did you ever see a warrant for them taking your child away?
No. Still have yet to see it. They told us that it was a verbal order and they didn't have it written up.
You know, I'm not an Iowa lawyer, so, but I do know someone that is, and I'm going to call him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think verbal is good enough.
I didn't think so either. And even get this, when I asked to see the umbilical cord testing stating that it was 8 nanograms, they told me that it was confidential and they cannot show me that it was 8 nanograms positive.
That's not true.
Did you ask for it?
I asked it 4 different times.
Hold on a second. Did you in writing ask for a retest?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing.
So you should talk to your court-appointed attorney about having it retested. Because I forget the regulation, but I was reading this a few months ago, and it was something that I knew, but it reminded me. When you're in a court proceeding and they use a test against you, the federal regulations require that you be allowed to ask for a retest. And if they don't give you the retest, I think the way the law is written, they can't use that drug test against you.
Wow.
Now,
I don't know.
here's the other thing. Here's the other thing, and you might want to talk to your attorney about getting some experts, a pharmacologist or a drug testing expert. 8 nanograms is such a small amount that there are other ways for you to pick up that amount in the environment.
Oh, wow.
So you should talk to someone, maybe even Google it, but talk to an expert, and maybe that expert can come and speak to you. Now, here's the thing that I've been noticing the past couple of years, and a lot of counties are doing this, a lot of states are doing this. I think they get together at conventions and figure out ways to take children away. Before it was you tested positive and the kid tested positive, right?
Mhm.
They would take the kid away or the baby
Right.
away. But now I was involved in a case. It might have been a year and a half ago. It was, during COVID. And what happened was this couple had a baby. The baby tested clean. The mother tested clean. And the umbilical cord tested positive for a very small amount of what was considered coca or cocaine. I represented the dad, and a friend of mine, another very very well-known attorney in CPS cases, represented the mother. And the case ended up settling and the kid being returned to the parents after a couple months, maybe I want to say like 3 months. But the CPS realized that they had a very weak case because what the mother's attorney did, he went out and got some experts to come in and testify and write reports. You can pick up a lot of these illegal substances in the environment. And it wasn't enough to say that she was a user. Now, in California, this is really important. And I think people forget about this, even in California. In California, the law is not test positive, lose your child. That's not the law. Everybody thinks it's the law. And basically, what test positive, lose your child means something they call strict liability. In other words, if it happens, then you just lose automatically. And that's not the law. They actually have to show some connection between a legitimate positive test and you not being able to take care of the child. A lot of people forget that. So, I could have a child, and if I were a woman, I could have a child and test positive for meth. But one of the things the court has to consider, if you're a lawyer and you bring it up, is the amount of the substance found, right? The age, and when it hits that umbilical cord, you're talking weeks, months ago, right? And who can prove? They can't prove that you ingested it purposely or intentionally. So they have to show that, it's not strict liability. If you were in California, I don't know what it is in Iowa, but assuming the laws are the same or similar, just because you test positive for such a little amount doesn't mean you lose your child. What they also have to do is prove that you are a risk based upon what's going on in your life now and what's going on in your future, in your past. Okay, can they use your past against you? Yeah, but on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, they can use it a lot. It's probably a 3 or a 4. So yeah, they can use what happened in the past against you, but that doesn't mean you're going to lose.
Even if she was an adolescent?
What do you mean?
They threw in my face during court that I have drug issues, mental health issues, and I was sex trafficked as an adolescent. But that was 2 years ago. A lot happens in 2 years.
Right. But it's something. I don't know about the sex traffic part of it being used against you. I think they're just throwing that in, shooting
Right.
shooting for the stars. But that other stuff they can use against you, but they have to prove that it's currently an issue. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. If I'm a woman and I have a baby today, and they bring up that I was a drug addict 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and they can't prove any current risk of my drug abuse and taking care of the child, then they lose. You get your child back. Okay.
Okay.
So don't, talk to your attorney, but if the laws are similar to California, you know, it's not strict liability. And you should get an expert to come in and testify how little, 8 nanograms is, and how the different ways you can also pull it up or come in contact with the drug. Now, I'm not telling you go look it up on Google. You can, but that's not admissible evidence.
Right.
You actually have to have probably some type of expert come in and tell the judge what you found on Google. Now, before you go run and do that, you got to go talk to your attorney, make sure that Davis isn't way out in left field because Davis lives in California and you're in Iowa.
Yeah.
Okay. But definitely talk to an attorney about it or your attorney about it,
Mm.
and don't fall into this trap, which I see happen, in California courts all the time. Oh, you tested positive, therefore you lose your child. That's not the law.
But they make it look like it's the law.
Years ago, I was involved in a case where that actually happened. And the parent appealed the case and won because the Court of Appeal said, look, okay, you have the drug testing or the positive test, but what else do you have? I, I'm kind of ashamed to tell you this, but there are many addicts in the world or in our country, probably in Iowa, that raise their family just right, just fine,
Mhm.
even though they're using drugs.
Mhm.
There's something called a functional drug addict,
Right.
functional alcoholic. Now, is it the best situation? No, I'm not saying that it is.
Right.
But is it enough to cause, a California court to say you're a substantial danger to the child and there's no less restrictive alternatives? I don't think so. It's all a matter of degree. Were you using meth that, you were living out on the street and in that lifestyle,
No.
right? Or did you come across somebody that was using meth at a party and now it's entered into your system, right?
Right.
You know, this happened a long time ago, many years ago. Um, for a variety of reasons, I won't get into the whole story. I ended up taking a drug test, okay, for something, and it came back positive for marijuana. Now, I can tell you that I've never used marijuana. Never. I've just never used it. Have I been around people that have used it? Yeah, I have. But then I test positive. So there are a lot of different ways you can Google it. You can get an expert to come in and testify. Hey, you know, are there other ways to pick up a positive drug test? Yeah, there's a lot.
Mhm.
I was reading an article. I don't know if Ms. G, if you gave me this or Cassandra gave me this several months ago. You can test positive for a lot of different illegal substances by just eating certain types of foods or taking certain types of prescribed drugs.
I shared
Oh
that.
yeah. I knew
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So, you know, and then on top of that, the drug testing isn't 100% accurate. If I were your attorney, if I were you, I'd talk to your attorney about perhaps challenging that positive test, asking for a retest, and then asking an expert or a legal finding that 8 nanograms is not sufficient to cause you to lose your child.
Right.
Now, I'm no drug expert, okay? But I've represented a lot of people in drug situations, both in juvenile court, both in criminal court. in family law court. And I'm looking at you, and you do not look like a meth addict. Now, now I'm not
No,
an expert, but I've
she
been
does.
around. I've been around,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is not a disparaging remark, but a lot of meth addicts that you come across um, have a certain look, have a certain thing going on with their mouth, uh,
Hmm.
are not lose a lot of they lose a lot of weight,
Right.
right? And I'm looking at you thinking you're not fitting that description.
Well, I appreciate it.
Now that doesn't mean that I'm right.
Well,
Know,
I'm definitely sober.
right? So I mean, if as long as you're testing clean,
Yeah.
test clean. And if they make you wear a patch, you better protect that patch. Don't expose it, because you'll be walking around outside and pick up something, and it'll get in your patch, and then you'll test
Yeah, I'm
positive,
gonna
and they'll
hide
like
it.
say, "Oh, see that?" The other thing that you could do, and I actually did this for a case where they in a county where they use the patch a lot here in Southern California. I had my client go take a hair follicle test like a week before the uh, the hearing,
Hmm.
and then the report comes back negative. Oh, they went back 3 months, 4 months, whatever. I think they can go back as long as 8 or 9 months. I'd have to look it up,
Right.
but you have very long hair, so they can go back. And um, the social worker had been alleging, although she'd never seen it, that my client was a drug addict, cocaine addict. First of all, I said to my, judge, I said, look, even if she is using cocaine, it doesn't appear that she's a risk. She can take care of her child. But secondly, she took a test, a hair follicle test, and then the county council objected because it was hearsay, and it was hearsay. So I had subpoenaed the records, and I had subpoenaed the person who was conducting the test or responsible test for the test from the drug testing facilities, and they didn't know that I had done that. I just had the guy sitting outside in front of the courtroom next door. So when they objected to it, I said, "Oh," and they figured, "Oh, they got Davis. They got Davis finally." I said, "Oh, I have the witness outside," and he came in, and
That
then
sounds familiar, Davis.
they said, "Oh, Davis didn't disclose that to us." And I said, "Well, I didn't have to tell you my case. You
Mm.
didn't tell me your case."
Right.
So then the witness got on the stand, and they tried to cross-examining, and the judge agreed. Lady's been clean the last 3 or 4 months. What is the social worker talking about? So make sure you get your evidence in. Make sure you get it into the right way. I don't know the evidentiary laws in Iowa, but if you're going to bring something, make sure you can get in the evidence. I told this story once before. I met with a guy one time who claimed and swore that the judge was corrupt. And I asked him, I said, "Well, why do you think that?" Because he said, "Because the judge wouldn't look at my evidence." I said, "What evidence did you have?" He said, "I had school records and I had medical records." And it was great evidence for him. But the judge didn't let it in. And you know what? The judge shouldn't have let it in because he didn't lay a proper foundation. Those
Mm.
documents were hearsay. And the judge correctly didn't consider it. So if you're going to bring evidence into court, you better talk to your lawyer about how to get it in. And one of the things that I see all the time, I see this all the time. They sometimes you go to court and you think, "Oh, I know the county council. Oh, I know the minor's attorney. They won't object to my evidence," right? Because we work together all the time. And then they do object to it, and then you're SOL and your client loses their kids, and oh,
Yeah.
oh well. Did our friend in the background have a question?
Yeah, I think so.
He
What's the
wanted
question?
to know if we could send you guys privately the
No, no. How do we get the audio and video into evidence?
Oh, he wants to know how to get audio and video into evidence.
Okay, so I couldn't hear you. He wants to know how to get what?
Audios and videos sent into evidence.
Okay,
Like,
I'm going to tell you how to do it in California. Okay. First of all, you have to have someone that can what they call authenticate and lay a foundation that that audio or video is a true and correct copy because they made it or they saw it being made. That's number one. The second thing you have to do is you have to have it in California, you have to have it transcribed. You can't just turn on the video and say, hey, judge, watch this. You actually have to have it transcribed before the judge will consider it.
Okay.
And most of the time in California, the judge is going to require that you give it to the other side before you try to use it in court.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
you
they
don't
require.
so you don't surprise them.
Right.
Okay? So in California, that's what you have to do. Now, here's something here's a good thing that we've used in the past. There's an app, actually a website called rev.com. You can upload any audio, video, whatever to them, and they will transcribe it with, I think, like 95% or 97% accuracy. Then when you get it in PDF or Word version or whatever you want it in,
Mhm.
you go through it and listen to it again and make sure that it's 100% accurate. Then you got your transcription, you got your DVD with the video, right? And your transcription, and you got the guy or gal there who made the video. Now,
Okay.
that's how you get something in the evidence. I was talking to someone recently, Georgette, I don't know if this is someone you had me talk to, but they had a video that was exculpatory, that would show that they should win the case, right? But it wasn't transcribed. So the
But I
judge,
gave her the transcriber's phone number. I gave it.
that's besides the point.
Mm.
It wasn't transcribed, okay, for whatever reason. All right. And the judge didn't consider the videotape. All right. And apparently, according to this person, the videotape was the key to winning the case.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are. You show up in court. It's not transcribed. Judge doesn't consider it, and you lose.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think judge is corrupt. No, not at all.
Well, they are corrupt, but
the judge didn't follow the law. Excuse me. The judge followed the law.
You said it right the first time.
The judge followed the law. Okay. So
God,
make
why
sure.
did you say that?
I thought that with that dental operation, you were going to be quiet today. So when you go to court or you call your attorney, you make sure you talk to him or her about all these issues because you don't want to lose a case on a humbug. Okay. Right. You got an attorney, use them. What's our friend saying?
He's listening on his phone because we got earbuds, and so he started laughing way after we had already gone through it.
He's delayed, huh?
Yeah.
In more ways than one, huh? Okay. All right. So,
he said, "I don't know yet."
All right, Miss Stacy, did you have any? Oh, here's Deidre said. Deidre says poppy seed muffins. Yeah, you can find that on the internet. You can get somebody to testify that. Apparently, poppy seeds will test positive for a certain type of illegal
I have
drugs.
heard that.
Opioids.
Yeah.
And here's something. This is it. Charlotte Fay says, "What about meconium test on a newborn?" That's what you had. That's exactly what you had. You had a meconium test.
Okay.
Yes.
Can that be challenged in court? Yes, it can. Now, here's something else that you have to consider that was a big issue in our case. A drug test is considered scientific evidence. Okay? In California and in most states and in the federal system, in order for you to introduce scientific evidence, say, for example, the social worker, it has to pass what's called the Kelly-Fry test. You have to show that it meets all of these standards, okay? And if you don't show it, it's not admissible. Now,
Oh.
here's something very interesting because it comes up once in a while in important CPS cases. Not all, but important. Objection, Your Honor. The drug test doesn't pass the Kelly Fry test. Like, wait a minute. Is this real court? You're talking about Kelly Fry test. Oh my God. Social workers never proved that. And it came up in that case that I told you about earlier. They couldn't prove the Kelly Fry test. They just said, "Oh, we got a positive test from the meconium."
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's what you say. Show us the foundation of the Kelly Fry test. Uh, uh, right? So if you have that kind of thing in Iowa, which I would bet $1 you do, it's probably called something else. Talk to your attorney about that. Can they prove that this is a legitimate scientific test and it meets the Kelly Fry test?
I do have a question though. After they went to court, the judge ruled that
You get visitations for as much
as they
time
want.
as long as my grandparents supervise it. Or DA or CPS supervises it. And so CPS went and got my child from the foster home, brought her to my grandparents, and stated after the court order was I could have as much time as I want. Like, I even got told by my daughter's attorney I could stay the night there. And they went and said, you get 1 hour visitation.
They made a safety plan.
Okay, so
they're violating the court order.
Right. You need to talk to your attorney about how to enforce the court's order. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that they're in contempt. They're intentionally violating a judge's order.
We do
And you
have
know,
a motion.
and to be honest with you, I've done many of these cases over 30 years. The kind of order that the judge gave you kind of telegraphs, maybe to me, this is just my guess, my professional guess, that the judge thinks this is kind of a bullshit case. Because if you were a drug addict strung out on meth, they wouldn't be giving you unlimited visitation. I don't care if it was supervised or not.
Right.
So,
they were this close to giving her back to me.
Yeah. You sometimes you got to listen to what the judge is saying and how they say it. Like I said, I'm looking. If you were in court or I saw you online or in court, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure she's an addict such that she can't take care of her kid. It might be better for the kid to go to the mother, make the mother test, 2 times a week, and as long as she's testing clean, baby stays with mom.
Right.
Those are what they call in California less restrictive alternatives. I would guess that you have them in Iowa, but talk to your lawyer because I think they're actually federal. They're federal regulations. All the states have to comply with federal regulations with these CPS laws, and a lot of the laws are same or similar. There are some differences, but generally speaking, there should be a less restrictive alternative.
Right.
And you testing clean, goes a long way on these drug cases.
Right. And something that they did mention at court, my attorney looked at CPS and said, do you know that she's providing breast milk and still breastfeeding during her visit? Like, she meets with the foster mom and gives her breast milk. So, but they refused to ask me for another drug test the entire time they had her gone from my care. I actually had to offer one for them to take one, and they said, so if she is allowed to provide breast milk and you guys are still claiming that she's on meth, either she's not on enough meth where you think it's going to harm the baby, or you're purposely just feeding her baby meth.
Here's the thing. I did this one time, right? And it's a good idea in theory. It didn't work for other reasons, okay? but it was a really good strategy, I thought. My client for 25 days tested every day at a facility. She came back and walked into court with 25 clean drug tests.
Wow.
Okay. Now, if you have that kind of evidence, and it could be expensive for you to get it, right?
Right.
How are they going to prove that you're a drug addict,
True.
right?
Right.
And you may not even need to do it every day. You could do it like every other day. Because if you used, it would still be in your system for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And or you can do that hair follicle.
Right. What was your question?
How do we pursue
The civil.
the hospital and where the people that work at the hospital are not giving you your rights to your child?
He wants to know what they
CPS worker.
could do about the hospital, because what happened, the CPS worker apparently got all the nurses involved in all this, and they were actually coming in and accusing her of being on drugs while she's in the hospital.
Right. I literally had her. I was awake for 24 hours. Was going through the longest labor. Freaking was up for maybe 48 hours. They said that they had to wake me up to feed her and change her because I wasn't waking up. After apparently, because I can't do that after I'm going into labor for 24 hours and then up with her for 24 hours.
You should file professional complaints against those nurses. That's what you should
Okay.
do. Because they came into court and lied for the social worker. Hey, by the way, Deidre Payne is insisting that I read this question.
Okay.
Mr. Davis, can they use the fact that she went to the hospital and said she relapsed and needed treatment while knowing she was pregnant against her vote? The answer, Deidre, is yes, they can. But as I said earlier, on a scale of 1 to 10, that may be a 4. And by itself isn't going to be enough, in my humble opinion. Okay? But can they use it? Of course they can use it.
They ended up using it against me.
Yeah, of course they can use it. If she did something when she was 6 years old, they can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That doesn't mean it's a 10. Could be a 1. Could be a 0.5. But they're going to use anything that they can do. Anything they can use. In other words, they're going to beat every drum that they can beat. And then some. And then some. And then some.
Yeah.
A lot of people tell me the social worker's lying.
Yep.
I hear that so
They
much.
actually do, because she got caught in quite a few lies on the stand.
I actually hear this from people from literally all over the country. All the states people call me, British Columbia, the United Kingdom. And I want to tell you, because we're running out of time here, I want to tell you a quick story. This happened, it seems like 6 or 7 years ago. I took the videotape deposition of a social worker in a civil rights case. About 3/4 of the way through, she admitted that she had lied, that she had committed perjury.
Mm.
And I asked her every which way I could so that she couldn't later back out of it.
Right.
The attorney for the lady asked to speak to me privately after the deposition. Now, before this attorney, the county had offered us $10,000 to settle the case. They considered it nuisance value. Okay. When we talked privately, he said to me, you had too much fun today than any lawyer should ever have. Because how many times does a social worker under oath on a videotape say, yeah, I lied about that? How many times does that?
Yeah.
Say that?
Right.
Well, that $10,000 offer. He took me out to dinner. Not that night, but he says, "Hey, I want to take you out to the best restaurant you like around here." We went out to dinner. Had a great time. Just talked about everything but the case, and then at the end of the case, he offered me substantially more money. I went and told my client, I said, "Don't accept it." Didn't accept it. And as the case was proceeding to trial, we made a motion to strike the social worker's answer. See, in federal court, you can't, if you lie about something, you cannot get the protection of the court.
Mm.
And before that, before that motion could be heard, we went to mediation. And at the mediation, a retired judge, convinced my client to settle the case for even a lot more money. I wasn't in agreement, but it was kind of life-changing money for the family, and they did accept it. But do social workers lie?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, they do. I mean, they're just like people. Do people lie?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, how about this one? Do cops lie?
Yep.
You hear about that poor guy? Where was it? In Memphis, Tennessee, that got killed by 5 cops.
Oh, yeah.
Black
That's
guy gets
horrible.
killed by 5 black cops.
Yeah.
You should have seen. Have you seen the reports that they wrote after the incident?
No, I haven't
Before,
seen them.
before the videotapes came out?
Mm-mm.
Most of the videotape that incriminates them was not from their body cams. There was
Oh.
something in the area, like a
Oh, the
business or
camera.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, business or something had a camera
Right.
that just happened to be on.
Right. Right.
I'm a big proponent of social workers wearing body cams.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be.
They should.
Mhm.
That would stop a lot of the lying.
Oh, yeah.
Not all, probably. Well, they might
So
turn it off.
based on what we've told you, do you think we would have a civil suit too?
Well, yeah, you at least in my humble opinion, you have
Okay.
a Fourth Amendment civil rights lawsuit. Now, whether
Okay.
you have anything more, I don't know because I haven't seen your file. I
Right.
haven't read the report. I haven't really interviewed you other than this. We've been on this air today less than an hour. We're even though we're talking about your case, we're not getting down in the nitty gritty.
Right.
We're
Right.
kind of at the 30,000-foot level. And for me
Right.
to say whether you have a great civil rights lawsuit for other stuff,
Okay.
I would have to analyze that. Not something that
Okay.
I can just say. But you do have, if everything that you've told me is accurate about the
Mhm.
detention of your child, you have a Fourth Amendment claim for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
For sure. Now, I'm not guaranteeing you that you will win that because a lot of
Right.
things happens in these lawsuits.
Right.
But do you have a viable claim? My opinion, as a 36-year lawyer this year, it's yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am supposed to get my child back by the 24th of this month. So
Okay. Great. Well, you know what? Keep us apprised. Let us know.
Yeah.
We're running out of time this evening.
Okay.
Miss Truen, thank you for joining us, Miss G. It's always a pleasure. And I want to thank Miss Stacy and her family for joining us and sharing her story. It's always interesting to hear from people all over the country telling me the same story, about CPS.
We appreciate you letting us be on here and talking to you guys.
Well, I appreciate that. And keep us informed. Let us know what's happening.
Are you going to give her the phone number for the civil attorney in Iowa?
Oh, I don't have that information in front of me.
I know, but do you want her to contact me and maybe you can text it to me and I'll give it to her? Okay.
Yes, I can get it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay.
So call the office and ask for me and just
Okay.
let them know you want this phone number for the Iowa civil attorney that Davis mentioned on the show. Okay.
Is that this 888 number?
Yes.
Or okay. Okay.
That's where you
Definitely.
call
Okay.
to speak to me or Miss G.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, I want to advertise a show. We do a lot of different shows. There's a show tomorrow. It's going to be on one of our shows called CPS The Horror Stories.
Hmm.
And that show is currently hosted by Cynthia Becker. And she's gonna have an attorney from Tennessee,
Okay.
and her name is Connie. And Connie is, in my opinion, one of the relentless fighters of CPS.
Oh, okay.
And tune into the show tomorrow at noon. I think it's
Okay.
gonna be on YouTube and on these Facebook's channels to watch that show. She
Perfect.
Connie is very active in trying to change laws. And something happened to her recently. I don't know all the details,
Hmm.
but I think the state went after her. Um, I don't know the details of what happened, but I'm sure they may talk about it tomorrow on that
Okay.
show. And that show lasts like 60 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
So it would be Miss Becker and Connie. And I would say Connie's last name, but I keep forgetting how to pronounce it, and I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you again for watching and listening tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Good night, all.
Thank you.